He's granted a 12-pack so ridiculously good, it would make Goku jealous.
Where? Oh my god, you could grind meat on it.
This show should have been called I Was a Fat Loser Until I Woke Up with Abs and Every Female I Ever Come Across Falls in Love with Me. Or, my bad, that's a little too long. How about All the Bitches Want Yuya's Cock? So, I'm ashamed to admit this, but a long time ago, when I was a stupid-ass, dumbass, mentally challenged, antisocial kid, I kinda got addicted to a certain genre called harem animes. And I don't know why, but like, almost every popular harem anime that came out back then, I watched. And before you start thinking I'm a super creep weirdo,
let me explain why.
The only reason, and I promise, the only reason why I watched them so much was because I was curious to find out if the main character would actually get with one of the girls. And if it was the girl that I liked, Onodera, it was like an added bonus. Of course, 99% of them ended up with no conclusion or just cliffhangers until the next season, but when the densest, dumbest piece of shit, ugly looking, doesn't deserve the attention they get main character finally makes up their mind and actually picks a girl to start dating, that's when shit got saucy. Now, as a stupid ass kid, I had no idea the entire premise of harems was to literally stall the show for as long as possible so they can set up the confession scene as the finale, so back then it didn't really bother me that much. However, to get to the point, in my weird anime tropes video, we clearly established that harem animes are meant for children, or maybe it's just meant for children. But today, I want to find out if the stories these harem animes try to tell are appropriate for our like-minded children, and maybe strike up a debate on whether or not we should start looking at the type of anime TV shows our kids are watching nowadays. Because if there's anything I learned about the internet, it's that children love to imitate the people they admire.
You know his dance? Okay, alright.
And you may think I'm joking, but by the end of this video, I'm gonna explain how I got a cheat skill in another world and became unrivaled in the real world too. Holy shit, that title's long. I'm just gonna call it I Got a Cheat Skill from now on. I'm gonna explain why I Got a Cheat Skill is potentially more dangerous to our children than redo of a healer. Okay, not really, but I am going to talk about how they use a similar method of storytelling in order to tell two completely different stories while both being just as dumb as the other. Regardless, let's dive into the story of this anime so we can try and find out how this anime could have been so much better, and try to keep up with me because the pacing of the show is insane. So in I Got a Cheat Skill, we meet our main protagonist Yuya, and Yuya's a very interesting guy. In fact, let me let you in on only a couple interesting facts that we learn about him and his life in only the first episode. So, he gets his ass kicked for defending a girl that gets aggressively hit on, somehow gets bullied by his younger brother and sister, and parents, gets insulted by everyone who's ever met him, like all the time, has a gang of school bullies that try to force him to stay back a year so they can bully him longer, and beat him until sunrise so he gets fired from his job. And by the way, if you think I'm kidding about the sunrise thing, I'm not. They literally continue beating him until school's over. They don't even go to school. Beating this kid's ass is way more important to them. Also, they revealed that he used to get bullied in middle school. The only person that ever loved him was his grandfather, and if you think that's good, don't worry, he died not too long ago. His parents tried to take away the possessions he got from his granddad's will, and when that failed, they disowned him and banished him from the family. And because of all that, he's forced to spend the rest of his days living alone, working part-time jobs to get by. Pretty classic. But after we speedrun Yuya's tragic past, we see him come back from a long day of getting his ass kicked, and he starts to have a mental breakdown in front of the mirror. However, turns out, hitting the wall next to the mirror is actually the way to open up a secret passage that leads directly to the other world. Hence, the long-ass title of the show. So apparently, the portal to the other dimension leads straight to a pretty decently sized home that happens to have an invincible protective barrier around it, while also being filled with some pretty overpowered looking weapons. And I could talk about how the main character is too stupid to realize that it's all of his grandpa's stuff, but he does way more stupider stuff, so I'll just leave it at that. He ends up using what is obviously a bunch of his grandpa's gear and starts training for the rest of the day, and by using the power of his invincible magical plot barrier, he manages to kill a super strong ogre, which, credit to the animators, was actually pretty fucking terrifying for an isekai anime. After that, he gets a bunch of levels and goes to sleep, and for some reason, right before he goes to bed, his body starts to morph and change, and when he wakes up, he's granted a 12-pack so ridiculously good, it would make Goku jealous.
Duh? Where? Oh my god, you could grind meat on it. Ah!
And this is where shit starts to hit the fan. He gets up and starts heading to school, and while walking there, he starts to notice that everybody is staring and talking about him. And I don't know why, but watching the dub version of this anime actually puts in perspective how stupidly funny it is when everyone reacts to how hot Yuya is.
Hey, who is that? Look how tall he is. He's so good looking too. I bet you he's a model. What? You see him? Oh, wow. Who is he? I don't know, but he's so cool. And mega handsome. And look at his dog.
Anyway, as soon as his brother and sister find out that Yuya is finally doing good for himself, they immediately get super angry at him, but before they can do anything, the woman he quote-unquote saved the other day, whose name is Kaori, pulls up in a limo and immediately recognizes Yuya, and for some reason, doesn't question him on how he managed to lose over 200 pounds, and asks him to join her much better, much more prestigious high school on account of his amazingness. Yuya accepts after some absolutely pointless drama, and I'll skip to him getting introduced to class where everyone just falls in love with him as expected. Now, I'm gonna pause for a second. Now that you guys get the setup of this anime, I'm gonna start talking about the problems. And if you're worried because you haven't watched the show yet, don't worry, I'm doing you a favor, because for the rest of this anime, the entire thing is just a cycle of him going to the other world where he trains until he finds a super hot girl, or a pet sometimes, then he goes back to his world where he does some super crazy shit and makes another super hot girl fall in love with him. Rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat. Do you get it? Oh, and I can't forget to talk about all the superhuman Captain America Baki type shit this guy does. All the while, nobody around him seems to care. I mean, Yuya literally makes a point to not hold back, and yet somehow, no one seems to notice. Like, in one episode, a bunch of biker delinquents called the Red Ogres show up out of nowhere and start terrorizing the students by driving in circles around them and hold Kaori hostage. Turns out, Yuya's younger brother and sister put the delinquents up to it in order to get revenge on Yuya. And this is where shit starts to make no sense. Yuya jumps out of a 3 to 4 story window to go and save her, beats up their strongest guy, including the gang leader, single-handedly, and no one seems to notice. They all just act like this was an odd Tuesday. Nobody even questions it. They just call the police and everyone gets arrested like, okay, does this guy get a medal or something? He just defeated an entire gang. Also, there's a luck stat that's absolutely broken, and just so you guys can understand how broken it is, it literally writes the show. Like, everything good that happens to him in the show, which is basically what happens every episode, is a product of his luck stat. Like, in one episode, a super famous magazine photographer just so happens to be looking for a super hot guy IG model in the mall in order to pair with his super hot girl IG model. And at that exact time, guess who just so happens to be taking a stroll in the mall? How convenient. He obviously finds Yuya and asks him to play the boyfriend role in the photo shoot, another super unexpected twist, and we get a quick montage of them taking pictures around the mall. And after setting up some pointlessly flirty scenes where the model girl clearly makes a move on a man who is obviously not interested in women, they finish the photo shoot and relax on a bench, and after Yuya explains his tragic backstory, some super obvious hot IG model boyfriend, man, I'm getting tired of saying that, pulls up out of nowhere and starts aggressively hitting on the model girl, which seems to be a common theme in this anime. However, this time Yuya is a strong and independent big boy and beats up a guy that doesn't know how to respect a woman's boundaries, and everyone cheers. Wait, doesn't this entire anime feel exactly like those fake Reddit threads lonely people would make for attention back in the day? Like, oh my god, I can't believe I'm posting this, but for 68 years I've been scared of using ladders until today. I saw a cat stuck in a tree, so I used the ladder to go and save it, and all the neighbors saw me from their houses and everyone cheered. Like, that didn't happen, bro. Also, they spend a ton of time in the isekai world and actually build a pretty deep lore for the world and stuff. However, none of it is interesting, it's just your basic isekai setup. Almost nothing about this anime is original or unique. Well, apart from how shit it is. Oh, and by the way, they shove the lore down your throat. Like, if it's not a magical book from a sage thousands of years ago directly talking to Yuya about his life, or a magical rabbit with kick abilities that is one of the 7 divine creatures the earth created in order to protect against evil beings, I actually can't make this shit up, then it's something else. And the entire point of all this exposition they give us is so that Yuya can get more power-ups. And I don't think I mentioned this, but throughout the entire show, Yuya is stupidly overpowered. Like, it isn't until episode 10, when he meets some random ass mithril boar, that he comes across his first challenge. Also, they made it a thing in this anime where he can convert items from the other world into real money, which I thought was a great concept, but he uses it once to get enough money to go to the mall and buy some clothes for school, and then never uses it again. Honestly, I'm pretty sure they just needed a reason to make Yuya not have to go to a 9-to-5 job, so they just made this rule up to get out of that. And finally, the fact that this show tries so hard to be a harem just completely ruins any semblance of a good story. They could have easily made this a great story, and potentially even a great isekai, which I don't think is that hard to do. But instead, we just get a bunch of scenes of females competing to see who can get Yuya's attention the longest. But that's all I have time for the problems, so now we can talk about the characters. And we're gonna start off with my personal favorite, Yuya. Where to begin? So the main problem with Yuya is he's still the fat loner who's anxious and doesn't know how to talk to people. And if they were trying to make a plot around an anxious protagonist, that's cool. But I'm sorry, Yuya is just not that interesting. And it's not like anybody ever explains why Yuya was bullied his whole life. Like, it's just kinda hard to believe that everybody beats him up, insults him in his textbooks and belongings, and constantly make fun of him just because. I mean, this show should have been called I Was a Fat Loser Until I Woke Up with Abs and Every Female I Ever Come Across Falls in Love with Me, or my bad, that's a little too long. How about All the Bitches Want Yuya's Cock? Like, Yuya's only personality trait is nice. He's not funny or sad or happy, he's just nice. That's it. Nothing else to him. He's just a really nice guy. I mean, he's not smart since he's so stupidly powerful he doesn't need to use his brain, and he doesn't learn anything from the other world since he just magically gets items from defeating monsters and stuff. There's no progression in his character, no learning curve, no life lessons. It's just a bunch of high school girls dick sucking him. And I get that the guy is super anxious and self-conscious, but even when he does speak, he just says the weirdest shit.
Huh? Something wrong?
It's just, you're kind of blinding.
That's gay. Cut that out.
As for the female characters, I can sum them all up in about 30 seconds. Kaori has no personality outside of being best girl. The model girl showed up twice, once to fall in love with Yuya, and once to scare away the entertainment business who's harassing him. Kaede just feels like another love interest they threw in for the hell of it, which doesn't make any sense since she looks exactly like the model girl. The princess Lexia has no personality outside of being in love with Yuya, and the same could be said for Kaede. And Luna almost was a good character, but since this show is a harem, any semblance of that was thrown out of the window. But now that everything important is out of the way, don't talk to me about the music or art in this anime. Now we can move on to the part we all been waiting for, redo of a healer. This part is definitely gonna get me yellow dollar signed. So do y'all remember that crazy ass rated 18 anime called Redo of the Healer? Well, other than being one of the most vile incel animes to ever come out, it was also known as being one of the craziest revenge fantasy stories to ever exist. And if you don't know about this anime, or did know about it and just did yourself the pleasure of not watching it, I'll briefly sum up just some of the worst things the main character in this show does. So he R-words a princess, and if you don't know what the R-word is, it rhymes with grape. Erases her memory so she becomes a slave, manipulates a child slave into becoming his, and has sex with her, murders innocent people to achieve his goals of revenge, manipulates a demon lolly into wanting to have sex with him. I'm not even gonna try and explain this one further. Manipulates a royal knight to disregard her position and fall in love with him, and probably 10 other ones that I forgot to mention. And how did they justify the main character doing all these ridiculously evil acts? Well, they had the first 3 episodes showcase everybody he's ever met R-word him. So that way, the audience can feel good about him doing all of this. And while that's not exactly the same as I Got a Cheat Skill, I'm assuming you guys noticed the similarity by now. Instead of getting R-worded every day of his life, Yuya gets bullied every day of his life. And obviously one is worse than the other, and by no means do I ever want to insinuate that people who get R-worded can ever easily forget or forgive such an experience. But both go to different extremes while also telling a completely nonsensical story where both main life lessons are terrible. In Redo of a Healer, the main life lesson is that revenge is okay as long as your reason is good enough, and Yuya's is saying it's okay to literally cheat at life when you did no work in the aspects you needed to get there and reap all the rewards with no consequences because you deserve it. Like, do you realize how bad of a message that is to send to our kids? You're basically telling them it's okay to say, I need to cheat at life so I can get everything like Yuya did. Crypto scams? Why not? Pyramid schemes? I gotta take a risk if I want to succeed. Steroid pills? Anything to get me a body like Yuya's. I mean, maybe if they didn't start off the show with Yuya telling me about all the things that happened to him and actually showed the reason, I wouldn't be as angry at him getting everything he could ever possibly want. But anyway, I initially made this video just to talk shit about this anime, but I'm starting to get worried for harem animes as a genre. Back then, it felt kinda sweet, and it was fun to learn about the other rivals and find out who you personally like best, even though the teacher is always the best option. But now, it just feels like a competition to see who can have the saddest backstory while also having a good enough reason to have the audience not hate the protagonist. But anyway, this video is already way too long for me to come up with a unique way to get you to like and subscribe. So if you enjoyed, leave a like and subscribe. And I seriously can't thank you enough for watching. Also, his parents tried to take away the possessions. Stop. It's not funny. It's not funny. Stop. Whew. Stop. It's not funny. Why are you laughing? Fuck. I'm actually laughing at this guy's pain. I'm sorry.